So, yeah, welcome to this Nomas Projects event for this afternoon, and we're glad you're able to join us, as we've indicated, from different parts of the world, which has been one of the I think the upsides for us at Nomas. Rather than trying to get people to come to Dundee, well, not that that's a particularly difficult thing, but someone coming up from Glasgow or Edinburgh to Dundee for the afternoon for an artist talk is it's quite a road trip, and with having it on Zoom, we've just been able to have people from all over the country, and it seems all over the world as well. So it's great. My name's Cully. I'm an artist. I'm based in Dundee. I'm the director of a charity called Morphe Arts. And also one of the people behind Nomas Projects, along with Owen, who's also an artist and a tutor at Dundee College. For those that don't know, because there's a few people who haven't been here before, Nomas Projects is situated in a street in Dundee called Ward Road, and it's between a nightclub and the Balcony Bar, where you can get the cheapest pints of tenants in the country. It consists of 5 office windows that we use to display artworks. It's really as simple as that. The name derives from the Greek word nomad. It means roaming in search of pasture. And for Owen and I, the idea of roaming in search of pasture resonated with our need as human beings generally, and as artists particularly, who are constantly seeking inspiration. And our aim has always been to offer an opportunity to investigate the role of art in society, to engage with ideas, to learn from the experiences of others, and to be part of a relevant conversation in the arts in Dundee, in the city, and beyond. And it's been great, obviously in the last few weeks, that museums and galleries have been able to open their doors again. And hopefully some of you have had chances to get out and see some live art again. I know the Edinburgh Arts Festival is on at the moment, and there's lots to see there in that city. So I'm going to introduce you to Ruth, Naomi Floyd, who's the artist that we've been working with at the moment. The current exhibition, Still Here, features the work of Ruth, who is based in Philadelphia and describes herself as an emancipatory artist. I met Ruth for the first time at an arts conference in Hungary in 2012. I had to check back the dates because that seems a long time ago now. And then at Biola University in California a year later, where she was performing as a jazz vocalist. And that's just one of her many artistic talents. She's also a composer and a music director, and she's worked for the last 15 years as the director of jazz studies at Cairn University in Langhorne, Pennsylvania. Also, I think it was 2019-20, she was the recipient of the prestigious Kimmel Center's jazz residency. Ruth is also an award-winning fine art photographer specialising in black and white portrait images. In December 2019, sorry, I got distracted because I was letting someone in. Sorry, Owen. The Concordia College in New York awarded Ruth an honorary doctorate for her unique and valuable contribution to the arts, her commitment to music education, and her justice work. And it's the combination of the justice work and photography that's been the focus of the exhibition Still Here at Nomas. Ruth's artist statement invites the question, what does it mean to remain? And suggests that the dance between life and death is a profound journey. The exhibition Still Here are 5 new portraits which illustrate the stories and reflections of the people who have been infected or affected by HIV/AIDS, and whom Ruth has had the honour of serving and walking alongside for over 25 years. I'm going to hand over to Ruth now to let her share more about the ideas behind the work, starting way back when she was a young photographer learning to study her craft. And there's going to be time at the end for questions. So if you have any questions as they come up, just put them in the chat and I'll take note of them and we can ask Ruth these questions, and hopefully we can have a good conversation after Ruth shared. I think most people will have turned their microphone to mute, but if you can do that just so that we can avoid any background distractions. So please, if we can, show Ruth our appreciation and give her a warm welcome. Over to you, Ruth. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It is. Oh, thank you. It's wonderful to be here, and it's wonderful to see my dear friends, it's Dr. Lights from the Carolinas, and Miss G, as I call her, who's been a faithful friend who has inspired me to continue on this journey, and I love her in her blue shirt this morning. But it's really great to be with my brothers. I was looking at a old photograph of us at the church, and it's really beautiful to be with two great artists, Cully and Owen, and then Natalie, who I met in 2020 at St. Andrews. That was wonderful to finally meet Owen's bride. So great to be here. Cully's asked me to tell a little bit about my journey through photography and image making. I began as a painter and was a double art major at Philadelphia High School for Girls, which clearly is the best high school in Philadelphia. And so took double classes, and I just loved it. I excelled, or so they told me, at still life and landscapes. And the two things that I did not enjoy painting were still lives and landscapes. I wanted to paint the human form. I desperately wanted to paint the human face, and I was terrible at it. I think up until that time, I really believed that if you put your mind to it and worked as hard as you can, it can be accomplished. It's not true in this case. I worked so hard. And so I decided to look at other ways of creating in different other artistic languages, and tried sculpture and wood cutting. I really enjoyed linoleum printing, all those sorts of things, and then finally landed on photography. The problem is that I was a senior in high school and had received scholarships to two universities on painting. So I went back to them and said, I want to study photography. They're like, that's nice. Your scholarships in painting. And I didn't want to just take a photography course. I wanted to just dive right into 12 feet. Finally found a university. I begged and begged. They were like, I didn't own a camera. I didn't know how to shoot. And I begged the person. I said, you can see from my portfolio that I'm disciplined, that I'm passionate. Please give me a chance. And thankfully they did. But I got a long lecture. There's not many well-known African American women painters specializing in landscapes and still lives, and women of color. You could make, a whole career out of this, use this. And I was like, I'm bored to death. So I'm so grateful for this university and for this place of learning. And they took me in on one semester, and it's not only that I had to pass, I had to reach honors, and by God's grace I did, and I fell in love, and that was it. So I love photography. I love using film, particularly because for me, the discipline of seeing and deciding when to capture. And so nothing's wrong with digital, let me be crystal clear. But for me, I like that kind of, you don't know whether you caught or captured the image until it comes up in development. And so I love, it's just a great discipline of seeing and catching at the decisive moment, or pre-visualizing, and not saying, oh, this is off, okay, I'll go do that. And I think I'm really grateful, and I continue to create in with film and darkroom technology of tray processing. Collie, should I show some of my images now, or?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I will get that ready. Can everyone see?
It's just coming. Yeah, that's
okay.
it. Perfect.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to start with just real fast, just an overview. I won't start with the really, early images, but I'll start first with images from my Veil series, which is a black and white photography body of work. 4x5 camera is my favorite camera to photograph, and then also I use 35 millimeter. And the Veil series is about the veils in our life that we can see, the veils that we have to push away, that we have to tear, that we have to embrace, that we have to destroy, that we have to surrender, all those things. So here's just a couple images from that. This is one portrait of a dear friend of mine, actually one of my favorite models to actually photograph. Let's see, will this work? Here we go. Let's go to the next one. This is an image that just talks about reaching. This actually made it into the international competition of for the Pope's mission on humanity and what do we have to say about humanity. So they decided on 50 images, and I was shocked that photography, still in some ways seemed, not as equal to the finer art of painting and watercolor. I was shocked that it got in. I was like, photograph? Wow. And then I found out they thought it was an etching. So we didn't, I sent a letter, but they didn't say anything. So they have it down as an etching, but it's a photographer. And it's really just about how we reach for each other and we reach for that connection, reach for humanity. And then sometimes there are veils in between that prevent us from really touching in a way, or that we touch in spite of the veils that are there. This one is one of the signature images from it. It's called Woman in the Veil. And again, it's just that can we be seen behind our veils? Do we want to be seen? And this was this central image because I was photographing her that day, my dear friend, and she was very low. And she told me what was going on in her life. And we just stopped and just had a cry fest, ordered food and cried more. And at the end, I was like, well, thanks for coming. And she's like, I want to be photographed, but I want to be seen, but I don't want to be seen. I was like, okay. And so I just started playing with different fabrics where you may know her, but recognize her if you knew her, but if not. And I thought a lot about how she was willing and courageous at the darkest moment in her life to still be willing to be seen, but in some ways didn't want to be seen. So that's the birth of the image that birthed the Veil series. This is another Veil image that is the same kind of sense. I love the style of photography that does lends itself to charcoal drawing or etching, that kind of thing where at first glance you're not sure it's a photographer. So this is another image. This is one of I would say, the most well-known image from the series, Surrounded. And there's no veil at first glance, right? But there is a veil. There's a veil of darkness. And so for us, what does it take for us to be seen in the midst of darkness? And do we want to be seen when we're surrounded by that? And so that's the image. This is an image of one of my favorite humans in my life, my neighbor, Floyd. This is his first name, even though it's my last name. And our vestibule has the most extraordinary light at 4:00 in the afternoon in the fall. So I made him put on his fancy shirt and we took it. I love the human face. There's just such beauty to the human face. This is an image that continues to convict me on my time of working in Africa, on one of my trips to Africa, working with HIV/AIDS. It's a man from Maina in Kenya, a small town, and he spoke words to me that were so powerful, that remained to me as a human being, but also as an artist and a musician. So this is one of my most cherished images, not because I took it, but because of the amazing human who preached a sermon in 5 minutes to me. He has He passed away a few years ago, but he remains with me in profound ways. This is one of my students who has an unbelievable voice. I used to teach kindergarten through 12th grade for 20 years, and we were riding in a car back from him singing at a nursing home, elder care home, and he sang so beautiful. And he was just staring off, and I just thought, I'm going to snap a quick picture of him. But I love the light on his face. This is my godson. We would trek through Wissahickon Woods in Philadelphia, a large place that just have a massive woods and creeks and everything. And we came across this wall that remained, and he was talking about in his life, how does he fit in? What does it mean to fit in? What does it mean to lay bare the things in life, to surrender? And I saw this, boarded up window on this wall, and I thought, David, you need to crawl in there and hang your shirt up. It's there within reach if you need it, but I think you need to lay bare, and you need to be in this small place and really contemplate, what does it mean to be human, and what does it mean to be human and be yourself, traveling through this journey we call life. So that's symbolic of his. And then for a while, I joined an abstract photography group, which I really loved. So I started just sharing and creating abstract images. I don't know if they're abstract images, but they're more just a different kind of photography than I'm used to doing. So I wanted to share some of them with you. I really enjoy it. It's something that I continue to do and would like to do more of in the future. This is one of my portraits of my dear friend, Floyd. I had him stand in front of the vestibule doors with the window and just the shadow. And again, this view of who is he? What does it mean to be human? Can you see him? Does he want to show himself to you? And just the light and the shadows in the dark and all that that are in there, the gradations from bright whites to the deepest blacks. Silhouettes, not shadows, sorry. This is another one that means very deeply to me. This is an image that I created when it seemed the last change in the season of HIV/AIDS work. It was changing, and it was hard for me to relinquish. But I knew I had to, and I went out just setting to create an image that kind of summarized my journey through HIV/AIDS. And so you see the pebbles are representing of the road, and there's large ones that were hard to navigate and small ones and my shadow. But then there's the other side where there's that divide, that jagged divide of another body of water that we tread through, that was joy. And so that was just this dichotomy of serving others and the joy and the high privilege of doing so. This is a series I'm working on now. I've been always fascinated by water, and although I love portraiture, I think in the season of my life, the human face doesn't need to be illustrated literally, and the human body. So I love reflections, I love silhouettes, I love shadows, because they tell so much, and in some ways more than an actual traditional portrait. It lends wonder. Who is that person? Is she floating? Is she alive? Is she surviving? Is she flourishing? And so this is one of my new images from that kind of whole series that I'm continuing to work on. Yeah, so that's it for now. So that's just a quick overview of my body work.
Thanks, Ruth. Did you have ones of what the show at Nomas as well?
Sure. I didn't know if you wanted me to continue. Yes, sure.
Yeah.
Let me go back real quick. There, is it up?
And that brings us up,
Yeah.
that brings us up to date for
Okay, great. Okay.
yeah.
So I was so excited and overjoyed when Cully and Owen asked me to create this work. It was during a decision where I mentioned in the next to the last slide where my AIDS work was changing. And so when they came to me and asked me to create images surrounding this whole theme of HIV and AIDS, and it was beautiful discussion. We were able to all arrive on this theme together. So this body of work is really a reflection of my it's about 27 years of involved in HIV and AIDS, and what it means for those that remain, that went through that time of darkness and of death and of fighting to survive. And I created them with different themes in mind. For this is one is of joy, and I really believe that we all know there's a distinct difference between happiness and joy. Happiness is based on circumstance, whereas joy is regardless of circumstance. You can be deeply grieve and still experience joy. You can come through the darkest valley in your life and still have joy. And so I created this shadow on this pond or pool of water. And I loved how the shadows distorted this woman's hands. She has beautiful piano finger hands. But I think the shadow tells us something, that in the midst of she's standing there and reaching towards the sky with hope and joy that she has remained, that this terrible disease is manageable and not even the top 3 issues in her life, that it came at a great cost. And so if you look at those and you look at the shadow and again, the pebbles and the rocks represent the journey, that it's joy that came at a high cost. This one is again of my godson. And I'll talk in a minute about why they're not the actual people, which was really a beautiful journey of discovery for me. I was pretty surprised they were unwilling to be photographed, even their shadow, or even seen but not seen. And so this represents one of my former clients that has survivor's guilt, really. In a lot of ways, he's not able to live a full life of flourishing because everyone's gone. His community, his friends, his partners, his family disowned him, so he's left alone. And so for still here means for him the question of, why me? Why am I still here? What made me special? I know from my community there's other people that he really believed should have lived and had more to offer the world and more to give. And so, all that surrounds them, the green represents life, but also the brown is that tension, but it's just this cloud that is keeping him from living his fullest life. This two of my friends canceled for me to photograph, so I just had to wind up taking a self-portrait, which I was not thrilled about. But the client former client I had in mind, who's a friend now, so when I say friend, I really walk through them. I don't view them as necessarily clients anymore. And even when they were, was just this sense of her former self. When I talked with her about this series and asked how she wanted to be photographed, it was the sense of a mirror reflection, but that it's, again, that theme of being seen but not fully seen. And she doesn't want to be fully seen because for her, that cloak of AIDS and HIV is not one that she holds anymore. She is still, she's undetectable and she's living a full flourishing life. So she doesn't want to be identified or described or viewed as a person living with AIDS. She wants to be as a person that is living with a manageable disease that moves forward. And so I decided to just run the shower hot and then snap the image, the self-portrait of her. I didn't want to use a veil. I didn't want to use fabric. I didn't want to use a mirror as another one. So I decided just to use the steam that comes on the mirror and take a self-portrait. And she really loves it. She said that it exactly how she feels. I think it would have been great if it was her, but she didn't want to be photographed. And this image is one who is one of defiance. And I love this friend who has taken this gift of life and survival and has moved defiantly with such grace, with such beauty through life, no matter what's thrown at her. So those white pieces are shards of glass being thrown at her, and that hit her in a sense of tension and struggle. But she marches on with her head held high, and she's an inspiration to me. And then finally, this image is represented of one of a shadow of her former self, of a shadow of what it meant to come to grips with treading through the valley of shadow of death, but being able to not walk through that to relinquishing life, but to continue on that journey. And she had 3 close calls where it almost took her life. And so she is raised her hands are raised in triumph and joy, but also in the realization that it was a struggle, and that for her faith in God is what got her through. So it's also a form of praise and worship, of survival, of joy, but also remembering that it's a shadow of her former self, but that is still very part of who she is.
Thank you, Ruth. Ruth has done a number of events as part of the charity I work with this year, mostly singing actually. And one of the things that I picked up in her bio was that she was a photographer. And I think, I don't know if this would be right, Ruth, or not, that you'd be more known for your singing and for teaching jazz and so on. And when I picked up that you were a photographer as well, and particularly the work that you'd been doing in Philadelphia and in Africa, working with people who'd been infected and affected by AIDS, that was something that was what attracted me to invite you to work with us at Nomas as well. And I was just wondering if, how you balance those. I mean, for people who don't know Ruth, she has this diverse skill set, obviously with the jazz singing and the teaching, but obviously with the photography as well. And I just wondered how you balance those different disciplines, in terms of, how much time do you have to work on your photography or exhibiting? Because I know that you're really busy with the jazz work and the jazz singing.
Sure. I mean, I started out wanting to always be a teaching artist in different ways. And, I've done K through 12th grade and university for 15 years at 2 institutions. But I was always told, focus on one. If you focus on your composing, you'll be even a better composer. Well, clearly. If you focus on singing, you'll be better at that. If you just focus on photography. And I just had a very strong rebellious spirit towards that. My goal wasn't to be famous or to be known in that way. It was, I took very deeply the gift of creating. I think in a lot of ways I got that from my parents' stories of them being artists, but because being children of the Great Depression in America, that wasn't an option. And yet they made every way at high cost to make sure their children were able to have creative outlets and learn. And so for me, there have been times where photography was more busy than music, and other times I have just really am deeply grateful to be able to communicate into artistic forms. And so, whether it's for exhibit or for a magazine or for anything, I just loved shooting, and I continued shooting, not with the mind like this will be a new show and I hopefully I'll get a exhibition, but just to continue to create. But to answer your question directly, there was that one moment where I had a few times where I decide whether it was going to be music or to finish an exhibit or to finish a body of music. And I just decided that probably photography would be more forgiving with the age of the artist, so that people wouldn't mind coming to see a gallery artwork of an 85-year-old. I don't know that they want to hear 85-year-olds sing a whole concert. Certainly we have great examples of that in blues and jazz and gospel of singers who are singing fantastic at 85. So when brought into those positions, decisions I had to make, which only been about 3 or 4 times in my life, in my creative life, where I had to choose between music or photography for that moment or season. Music won out because there was a sense of more urgency with music.
That totally makes sense. I think that's one of the things about visual art. You know, you think about visual artists who are older as well, and you know, I think if you have a kind of contemporary mindset, you can continue to be relevant despite your age and years. I think Tony Bennett's just retired as well at 91. So no one wanted to hear him singing anymore.
Well, I mean, again, I have to say, like, you know, yay for jazz, blues, and other music too, folk music and things. But you know, longevity is beautiful.
There was a question in from Uli, which kind of connected to what we were just talking about there, and she was just saying, what does the music inform the visual art, or vice versa? Do they connect? Do you?
Yeah, they keep each other authentic, I would say. They inform each other, and they really, you know, the creative process of creating images also pushes me as a composer, and vice versa. I would say I am way far more nervous and uncomfortable at a opening of a of a show or exhibition, far more than on stage, because my photography, I cannot hide what you see in the images. It's there, and I feel in the middle of rooms surrounding my images, I feel bare, and I feel known and seen, and it's uncomfortable. So that surprises people, that you would think going on stage singing your own tune and, you know, be I am nervous, and it should be. I mean, it just shows you care. For me to share, if you want to know who I really am in the sense of my soul, in a different way, photography is it. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, you're getting the thumbs up there. There's a question come in from Gratia. I don't know if I'm saying that right, hopefully. It seems to me that humanity is a primary theme of your work, music and the visual arts. Can you talk about the relationship between capturing, depicting, proclaiming the humanity of particularly excluded, and the God become human to meet those who we might say are excluded from the garden, the place of unmediated fellowship? I'm glad you could follow that question, Ruth.
She's a dear friend, and her words push me, inspire me. She's been a great support. I don't know that she knows that her words make me cry most of the time, but my heart leaped when I saw her face. on here, and I'm really deeply grateful for her support. She's brilliant and deeply profound thinker, and I didn't know that right away in our friendship, but I've come to know that. So I'm not shocked by a hard question from her, but she's not purposely trying to be hard. She really is wanting to enter into dialogue, which is really beautiful, really. And those of us who are artists, you know that gift, what that means. To be known and to hear about your practice. I guess I'll answer that with a story, and I'll answer it with a story surrounding HIV and AIDS. So we had a small group. I'm a woman of faith. I'm a Christian, and so one of the things of walking alongside those affected and infected with HIV and AIDS, particularly during the last season of their life, was to be in communion with them and to be together. And there became a growing need for a safe place for those that were struggling with their faith, that really wanted to kind of have that struggle come to an end as their life was ending. And so we started a small support group. I don't even know a support group, but a small group that we would meet every other week at different places, share a meal. Everyone would share where they are. And then we would have a small time of a really profound spiritual message of faith, and then we would end. And as people, their life journey came to an end, it became less and less, and it was harder to meet. And it kind of just naturally came to an end, which was a great gift. So it was about 5 years. And at the end, they're about 7. And they said, Ruth, I said, I want you to answer this question. What do you want from your fellow humans? What do you want? And what do you want from particularly those people of faith, your brothers and sisters of faith? What do you want from them? Name it. And so at the end, we handed them in. And then they asked me, they said, you've been walking alongside of us. What is our number one? What do you think is our number one? And quite confidently, sadly, I said, to tell your story. To tell your story and have someone listen. That was second. Number one, for those of faith that came from a church tradition, was that they wished before they would die, that they would experience a safe place to take communion. And so for those of you that are from a church tradition or faith, particularly Judeo-Christian, communion means that communion with God and man, of partaking a part of him, and of presenting yourself in that profound connection through Christ's own death. And I just wept. That's what they wanted. Not even to tell their story, just to be seen as part of a body of faith that would be able to take communion and not be judged, and to be welcomed in, and to take that, in some cases, Last Supper, literally, with fellow people of faith. I hope that answers your question. And that's what I strive for, I think, in capturing humanity. The more I grow as a photographer, the more I grow as an artist. Sometimes that means not raising the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that means being present and seeing an extraordinary opportunity to capture what could be an extraordinary image and not raise your camera and just be present in that sacred moment. And it's interesting. Those are the moments. Those are the images that remain in the forefront of my mind. Those were that temptation to capture it, and something said, no, just be present. So I think that's the real beauty of humanity and capturing humanity. Striving to, anyway.
Yeah, thanks, Ruth. I mean, that was one of the things that, Owen and I were really conscious of in asking you, because it was, I think when I spoke to you, it was about saying how, you've obviously experienced working with people for all, for 25 years. How can we give an opportunity for their stories to be shared? And that was really the kind of the essence of the value of what we were trying to do with this show. And then aware, of course, that actually that's a huge ask, not just for you, but for the people. And obviously we're really grateful for those who modelled for you as well and allowed you to kind of participate in that so personally. Yeah, but it's interesting as well just to hear you saying that, Ruth, as well. There have been opportunities to do that, because that's what I thought was, not for the, it was really important that this wasn't exploitative. Yeah.
And I appreciate that. That was very important, and from the beginning, which I deeply appreciated. And even when I came back and said, the people my friends that I asked that remain, I was stunned that they didn't want to be photographed. They've been photographed before. Mm-hmm. At first I was disappointed. And then I was like, it's not about you, Ruth. And I had to realize, like, it's for them, I said, is it a matter of trust? Am I not the artist? Obviously you've trusted me with, in a lot of cases, your life and your care. But is it a matter of trust as me as an artist? And they said, one person sums it up so beautifully, said, actually, it's the greatest compliment to you. I'm trusting you with my story, and I'm trusting you to illustrate it. That's much harder than just taking a picture of me. I was like, ooh. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
There's some more questions come in, Ruth, so I'll continue. One from Chris, and he's asking, have you been inspired by writers on AIDS? And he says Susan Sontag, for instance.
Absolutely. Even just her writing's a reflection on photography and absolutely. I love to write. I'm not a good writer. And I'm working on it when I can, but it's not like a serious goal of mine to be a great writer, because I can experience great writing. So I absolutely love writing. I love reading great writing even more than me trying to write. And I am ecstatic and grateful for, there's few things that bring more joy than me sitting by the window in my garden, just reading with a glass of water in silence. And as I get older, I used to listen to music when I would read. I don't even do that as much anymore. Just reading in silence and that pause. And I have Kindle and all them, and I don't know why, because I don't use them. I love the feel of a book. I love the smell, particularly of an old book or a new book. I love being able to doodle, to draw, to write, to highlight. So, yeah. Another artist that has really inspired me in a lot of ways has been Diane Arbus. Her journey, and even sadly how her journey of life ended. Her truth telling in her photographs and in her writing are really profound. So yes, thank you, Chris. Always inspired. I read a ton.
Thanks, Ruth. There's a question from Corinne. I think I've got the pronunciation right this time. And Corinne's asking, have you ever considered combining your music and visual art in a performance? Is that something you've ever toyed with?
Yes. Actually, the Veil series has a body of compositions for an octet, and really interesting combination of instruments like bass clarinet. That are in there. So it's a whole body of work. So we ran out of funding for that. So hopefully the images have gotten much further than the music, if you would. But we're hoping to revisit that and put performances on. We did 4 performances with the music and the images, and in some cases it was in a exhibition space where the images were all around and we played the music, and it's an hour's worth of music. And that was powerful. But then also we had it where it's just on the screens in a venue. And then the most interesting one was the last three were in a performance space. So you came early, got your cheese and wine and everything, looked at the exhibit and the images, and then went into the performance without the images and heard the music. And then there was a chance for you to go back into the imagery. And I kind of really loved hearing people's reflections that way. They had a taste of the images.
Yeah.
They heard it illustrated in the music and then came back out to revisit. One of the most profound, well, I'll wait. Maybe I can answer a question with the story, so I'll wait. Yeah. I want to make sure we get through the questions.
It's all right, Ruth. Just, I think we can continue. We've got another couple of questions to come.
Okay.
So you're fine to share that story.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Sure. Great.
Oh,
So tell the story now?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. So at the first, was it the first exhibition? Yeah, I think it was the first time I was sharing these images. Oh, no, it was abbreviated. That was right. It's half of the images. And I was really grateful because I wanted to see people's response. I was 3/4 of the way done. And so an arts group asked to exhibit. And I've never exhibited a body work that wasn't fully completed yet, but I was excited. So I went early to make sure everything was all right. And a young middle-aged man came in, looked at the images from his body language. He did not like them. And he just asked to see the gallery manager and just said, these are all crap and they stink and what are they communicating and rah, rah, and left. And I ran after him and I said, hey, I'm just really, really interested why you didn't like the images. And I knew this, he thought I worked for the gallery. And he goes, well, I don't want to, hurt your feelings. I was like, no, I really liked you. And he gave me some kind of like the same thing he told the manager. And I said, do you have a minute just to go to the cafe down the block? I watched your body language. It was just almost borderline offensive to you, these images. I really would like to see. And by the way, I'm the artist. He's like, I don't want to go to cafe. And then I just said, you would be helpful. And he goes, I don't have good things to say. And I said, that's helpful. Mm-hmm. And so we went and talked and sat down. And he just told me why. And I had them on my phone. I don't know if I had a phone back. But, I showed them. And he was just saying, this is why it's to this or this. And finally, at the end, I just said, there's a thing I call like root and fruit. And you've talked a lot about the fruit. And I believe you, and I'm taking your words to heart. I just sense that your words are connected to something deeper. And that's really what I'm interested in hearing. And then he just opened up that this exhibit just, he felt it condemned him. And the veil in each image represented his marriage. He had taken his marriage for granted. He had abused his wife in the sense of abandonment, of working all the time, not caring for her, throwing money at her, not listening to her. And he thought, I'm a good guy, provide, I don't cheat. What else do you want? And she left him and it devastated him. And he tried to change and transform and come back to her, but it was too late. And so at the end of the day, and I said, that's the goal of the image. You can hate them. I just want to know why, and I just want to know what that veil was. And so it was a powerful lesson. It was hard to hear how much he hated them, of course, but he meant it. And so, yeah, it's not, you get a red dot or that you win a prize or that anytime someone takes the time to really feel that work, and Dr. Lights is here, she knows what that means, and Owen and Cully and other artists, that they take the moment, whether they love it or hate it, that they take the time to see it and see what it means to them is more than a purchase of the art, more than, anything. So it's powerful, yeah.
Ruth, thanks for sharing that story.
So yeah, we've done the combination. So
yeah, but it is amazing, like just with when it becomes beyond just the interaction and the interaction, even for someone to have a conversation with an artist, even for that to do, I mean, that's incredible that you went after them and you end up having that kind of conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is incredible. There's a couple of questions. I'm going to leave yours on at the moment. You can maybe ask it when you come on, just for time. So there's two more questions. One from Dan here, and he's saying, we're on Zoom and we've seen your images as you've shared them there. And I think Dan was at the conference that we had back in February where you were singing. And obviously we heard you singing over Zoom as well. And I remember when we were organising that, to try and get, how do we get the sound that, that captures a live performance over Zoom. And the question from Kirsty mentions that as well, just how much she appreciated being at that and hearing you singing. But Dan's asking, we've seen your images, on a screen, on our device, whatever we're looking at the moment. And he's just asking, do you have a preferred mode of sharing your images? How might we experience them differently if we saw these printed or say in the windows? I don't know if anyone's seen them in the Nomas windows, actually. The last 5 slides that Ruth shared are the ones that are in the Nomas windows, but they've been printed onto board, then they're behind glass in the windows. So you're obviously seeing a different way of seeing them. And then related to that, he asked, do you have a favourite memory of sharing an image? So there's 2 questions there, just about preferred mode of sharing image, and then do you have a favourite memory of sharing an image?
Sure. I love the print. I am a better printer than I am a photographer. I love the process of printing. And that was my goal for a while, to be like a really amazing printer. And I took seriously the craft, and so it's really the vehicle that carries the images, because these images, if printed poorly or not with the same care, wouldn't have the same impact. And then I grew to actually like capturing images and things like that. But yeah, I love them in print form. So you would be able to see, in such an image. I'll go back real quick. Particularly, let's go back to this one. Like in this one, you can see a little bit, you would be able to know that they're little droplets. And you might even be saying, oh, I think that's a mirror. You would be able to see that. But particularly with this image coming up. Come on. Here we go. Sorry. Here we go. With these 2 images printed, you would know it's a veil, and you're able to really see the material of the veil, and you're able to really see such the lightness, like the highlight of the lights here that almost seem like I can't think of the word. Sorry, I can't think of the word. But you would be able just to see like the way that the light fell on the material behind the young man. You'd be able to see those kind of things. So I love print, because particularly in this one, you would be able to see there's even a little hole that some people say, oh, there was a hole in the veil. It's like, good job. Yeah. So you could see the waves from her hair and things like that. So yeah, print is the best way. I love to show the best moment of a photograph was of an unhoused man, a homeless man on Arch Street in Philadelphia. Everyone would, he was just stunning, and he had a grace. I wonder if he was a dancer. The way he would just sit was so beautifully poetic. And everyone would ask to take a picture, but he would say, give me $3 or $5. I didn't have a problem with that. Like, work it, And he would see me. I still look around. Now I look really weird because you don't see people with actually film camera around their neck anymore. It's digital, whatever. And so one day he just said, "Give me $3. You walk by me and don't ask me." And I said, "I'm really interested, not capturing your beauty, but catching your poetic." And he said, "Yes, I am. I would be interested in capturing that." And so then then he made me pay $5 because I was demanding more of him, which I wasn't. But anyway, I was like, sure, less. It would have been $3. But anyway, I gave $5 and I created this photo. I was actually trying to get that image in here. And I brought the print back, 5x7, 11x14. So he could see it big. And he looked and he was like, he just looked at me and he goes, he kind of cursed. Well, he didn't kind of, he cursed. He goes, "Oh, damn, you really saw me. That's not the point." And to me, that was equal to winning any kind of photography award, so you can see my themes through all my photography to really capture the human soul in an image is rare and a profound gift. And he was disappointed, but he's like, "All right, you got it." So yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, that came up in one of the questions, just the humanity and just that story kind of reveals that as well, just to capture that. Amazing. I'm just aware it's just after 5. I'm just going to take Kirsty's question and then hand over to Owen. So we'll be wrapped up about 5:15, just for people so that but if you need to go, then you're obviously welcome to go. But just to let you know, we're probably going to keep going to about 5:15. So the last question, Ruth, is from Kirsty, and she's referring back to one of the portraits that you showed. It was one of a man who made a huge impression on you, and she said, that he had shared words that made a huge impression on you, and Kirsty was asking if you were willing to share what those words were, only if you're willing. So no pressure, only if you're willing. She's really nosy, Kirsty, isn't she? Yeah.
No, I'll put it up. I'm such a crybaby. Owen particularly knows this, although it's not my fault. He always makes me cry, so it's Owen's fault. But I will tear up because it's just such a powerful to me. Yes, I will share it, but excuse the tears. So mine is just, I was introduced to this small town of Mina by seeing the goats and kids fighting for food in the trash pile. So I just stepped back, took a deep breath, and immediately put my camera away. I was like, we are not taking pictures here. And so we walked around, and this stunningly beautiful human saw us walking around and everything, and he saw me put my camera in my bag. He saw me step back, and he saw me put my camera in a bag and came up. And his home was like one of the last one, and he came out and he goes, "Isn't God great?" And I was like, "Yes, he is," and he goes, "There's so much to be grateful for." And he goes, "Here." And he goes in the back, and he was growing bamboo. And he comes out with a stock for 3 of us. And then someone says, no. You only have 5 stalks. Don't give 3 away. Just give 1, 2, and we'll all share it. And he goes, no, I'll give it to this. And then I just said to him, I can't believe you're that generous. Like, it's amazing. Thank you so much. And he goes, It feels like you don't understand gratitude by thanking me so much. And I just kind of stepped back, and he said, I have this coat, I have 2 shirts, I have a pair of pants, 1 pair of shoes, I have 2 beanstalks left, I have my home, 1 room, what some people would call a shack, but I call his home. And he says that I'm old, and I am so grateful to be alive. And I'm so grateful to be here. And he goes, my child, which in the African American, you can be 60 and someone 70 and they'll be like, my child, you know, if you're just older. And he just said, my child, really understand what gratitude is. And then he looked at me and he said, and I was like, I'm going to ask. And I said, may I take your picture to remember this moment? And he goes, I saw you take your camera away. Thank you. He goes, it's quite the opposite when people come here. They dig for their camera and like, oh, let me take the pictures of the goats and the kids. So I took a portrait of him. And then he was walking away. He said, I need you to understand gratitude in this way, that if God doesn't do another thing for me, if I drop dead right now, he's done too much already. And here's a man that most of the world would say is densely poor. And he's alive and well and grateful. And so he's on the screen share of my laptop every time I open it. And yes, I mean, I hope you think it's a powerful portrait. I think it is, but that's not why I asked him. Wasn't the main reason why I asked him. It was just to have a reminder of what gratitude, and I really did a theological study, year-long study of gratitude, and it radically changed my life.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing, Ruth. I'm
So
glad.
thank you for asking.
Yeah, I'm glad Kirsty asked that question.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Ruth, for sharing that.
Welcome.
Ruth, I'm going to hand over to Owen now. So over to you, Owen.
Could you guys see that?
Yeah.
So Miss Floyd, Mrs. Floyd, thank you for today, and thank you people for coming and being part of this from the States, from Europe, from Britain. We are grateful, genuinely grateful. If my thing will click through. Here are some photos, Ruth. We should have sent you some pictures. They're not the highest of resolution, but you might get a sense of the space as it is exhibited within the kind of late evening. So just now in Dundee, about 9:30, it's getting dark. So this is just before that point, and they look lovely. And so what you wrote, a dance between life and death is a profound journey. To not be seen in the midst of the multitudes fighting against death, and seen in the midst of the layers of continued life of survival is part of the path of remaining. And that idea of just holding it together and reflecting and walking alongside, and it's kind of you've touched on this moral responsibility of photography in one sense to go forward and share an image, and on the other hand the kind of delicacy of that and the tenderness which has to be shown as a sort of pastoral care in taking an image and doing it and bringing it out there. And it's such a delicate balance to get right, and seeing that you're shown now in the context of that wider part of your work means a great deal to me personally. Here's some other images of the install for people who haven't been in Dundee, and here's the images again. And what I love here is this is kind of how you describe that would be made, you know, when there's speaking as somebody who wanted to be a photographer. And I won't cover what your kind of background again, but I had a question for you, Ruth, just very briefly. I don't know if there's time, but you seem very at ease with all the different strands. Was that something that comes from mum and dad, or from yourself, or did you have to fight to kind of to synthesize all these different strands of your work? Something I was interested in. I don't know if you're able to say anything on
that. No, for me, there was an internal battle of what should I choose, anything. It was more of everyone else saying, like, choose one. Right. And I understand that. Even a really internationally powerful foundation was giving out grants, and I made it to the final round. And they were choosing, I think there were like maybe 12 finalists, and they chose 7. And so I didn't make the cut, which, was great. The artists that did were extraordinary. But one of the things I love that they had the ones in the final round, the remaining ones who didn't make, to come in and talk to them about why they didn't make it. And so this is an internationally known arts foundation. And I was doing, it was when I was presenting the Veil series, and they, the woman just said, we loved your images of the Veil series, and we were really taken back by the music. To full disclosure, you were chosen to be one of the 7, but then right towards the end, one of the jurists asked, well, is she a photographer or is she a composer or musician? And so some said, well, no, she's a photographer who does music. And then someone said, no, she's a composer that does photography. And because they couldn't decide, they felt they didn't know me, and I didn't make the cut. And that hurt my heart because that was just several years ago. There's still that tension that you can't do, have artistic languages, and to do that. So the struggle was not necessarily within me, of reconciling that. I was just so grateful to have 2. I was like, Jesus, really? Really me? I was in shock and gratitude, but it was more of the struggle from the outside, and just assumptions. Like when I have an exhibit, even here, they're like, oh, you're retiring from music? I'm like, no, I'm doing an artist talk. And they're like, oh. So the fact, that's the struggle, really. Yeah.
Thank you. Because that was one of the things that struck me, that you are comfortable, but the society at large has to get with the program.
Yeah. And I understand it's the marketing, and it's less, that's becoming less and less, but yeah.
Thank you. I interject I really appreciate that.
I will say that I did not bring the 2 together until I felt like I had been a practitioner or been doing it for a while. I felt like it was very important in the beginning not to be like, I'm going to do a body of music. And I don't think anything's wrong with that. For me, I needed to have years in before I combined the 2, because I needed them to have a depth that only, for me, that experience brought. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. You felt it was solid at that point to bring it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Your show is within the whole show, a series of shows this year, all on the theme of care. Now, Ruth's work always makes me emotional. And I've been thinking about why we do art at all. And there's an article here by Olivier Dyens, a Canadian writer and university professor, and looking at it from a biological survival point of view. Art is a quality control mechanism of effective survival strategies. When we are drawn to a work of art, when we label such a work as beautiful, touching, or inspiring, we in effect filter through our senses and cognition the survival effectiveness of the art we experience. And Ruth, the stories you've shared today and the works of other folks this year, art isn't just a kind of add-on, it's a kind of essential, I think, even just down to biology. And they reckon in the article, the writer says that it is linked to people's recovery and actually physically dealing with illness and emotional health and physical well-being. The practice of art has a positive effect on our beings and our bodies and our experience of the world. So you've done that for me today, and I'm grateful for everybody that's listened and been part of this show. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here today. And let's maybe unmute and just say, show our appreciation to Ruth one last time. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you.